Welcome to Beacon Hill Update, produced by Millis Community Media. I'm Peter Themistocles. I'm a member of the MCM Board of Directors, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to host and facilitate this program. Beacon Hill Update is a quarterly one-on-one with our elected state representatives. Our program is split into two parts. The first is an unrehearsed question and answer session with a couple questions from residents. And then we'll turn the mic over to our representative to discuss the issues and legislation that he is working on. Our goal is simply to present an organic conversation with our elected officials. Millis is fortunate to have two elected representatives to the Massachusetts General Assembly. Today on Beacon Hill Update, we're happy to welcome Marcus Vaughn, who represents the 9th Norfolk District, which includes Millis, Medfield, Norfolk, Plainville, Walpole, and Rentham. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Great. Let's dig in right away with our resident-supplied questions.
Yes.
Let's start today with small town budgets and last year's state-mandated 14% increase in educational and special education funding. Now, most small communities like Millis and the others in your district have needed to scramble to cover that large increase, and in some cases, some have had to make difficult budget cuts. So to avoid something like that from happening again, what is the legislature doing to reevaluate and take a look again at these expenses and that current funding formula? Is there some new way the state can help communities like ours manage these sped costs?
So they're currently on the books today. There's plenty of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that are taking a look at this funding formula. Obviously, a very large increase in special ed funding and the skyrocketing cost of special education across the Commonwealth, with budget shortfalls obviously hitting us fairly hard these days. We definitely need to dive in and take a look at it. I've filed a bill as far as MSBA funding for schools, taking a look at the funding formula, even going another step as far as our escalating costs to build schools, which all go into Chapter 70 funding and funding our schools. Overall, the educational bucket needs some reform if we're going to be able to provide our children and our teachers with suitable outlets to make sure our kids are educated for the future. So,
all right, very good. Thank you. Next question.
yes.
Last fall, there were updates made to language in the firearms bill that passed in the House and is now being considered in the Massachusetts Senate. Assuming some measures of these updates do pass into law this year, how will these new updates impact the people of Millis regarding gun safety?
Yes, so this was a very hot topic at the end of last legislative session, and it will filter in to this new session between the House and the Senate. I was against the proposed language in the bill and the overarching proposal that was brought to us. As many of you know, Massachusetts has some of the strictest gun laws in the entire country. The language in this new bill was very restricted to law-abiding citizens and gun owners. I am completely on board with common sense gun control, but not taking away those liberties from, again, law-abiding citizens. I've been on record to support removing stricter bans on ghost guns and 3D printing of guns, higher mandates, more mandates on gun infractions and making sure that people are held accountable for their actions. But there's certain stipulations within this new proposed bill that the House passed and that will be taken up for the Senate that just, I think, go overboard for our Commonwealth.
For instance, Millis, there were two sort of hunting reserves, either in town or directly adjacent to our town.
Yeah.
How might folks who participate and attend hunters.
So
in that sense.
yeah,
How would this affect
so
them?
that's a great question, and I visited the local Finfer and
Yeah.
yes,
Finfer Feather.
Finfer Feather in Millis, and spoke to the students there, and they have students come from all over the Commonwealth and sometimes out of state. They do competitions. It's a different type of outlet than other traditional sports that we see out there. And they would be drastically affected by this law as far as certain capacities of guns that they're able to use in competition. And then obviously your hunters, they would be adversely affected as well. So that's something we definitely need to take a look at because there are programs throughout the Commonwealth that would not be able to utilize their firearms if a law like this was passed.
All right, very good then. Thank you. And the third question, supplied from one of our residents. There were reports out there of a revenue shortfall coming in the next fiscal year. How will this shortfall impact the towns you represent?
Yes, so this is something that we'll be taking up, here in this legislative session, and trying to find unique ways to mitigate, further shortfall. Obviously, tax revenues are down. I don't know if you've seen recent studies with U-Haul reports and the amount of migration heading out of our state as far as high-income earners, and we need a way to cover that gap in the tax revenue. Obviously, it's going to have a drastic effect on Chapter 70 funding, Chapter 90 funding for our schools, and then our roads and bridges, transportation. So we need to come together on both sides of the House and Senate to make sure that we're fiscally responsible from this point on. With the past administration, we all received money back, and now we're in a deficit. So it's a very, very quick turnaround. But I think we can get back to being a fiscally, level Commonwealth where we have a rainy day fund and can support all of our programs and services here in the state.
So toward that, our last question, and sort of the flip from the previous, Governor Healy has now outlined the priorities of her administration for the coming year. These priorities include items ranging from exploring transportation options to rural communities, to a tax cut package, universal pre-K, a $4 billion request for affordable housing, investments in literacy and veterans care, and a number of other things. It's just a short list. What are one or two of those of our governor's proposals that you feel like you could sign on to and champion one?
So I am a huge champion of early education, pre-K for all 4-year-olds across the Commonwealth. I think the earlier we are able to provide for our youth in a school system, in a structured environment, the more successful they're going to be, especially in our largest cities and underserved cities. So that's something that I definitely will get on board with, and I have been on board with. I think moving forward, as far as affordable housing, we are in a large shortfall as far as housing and affordable housing in the state. Where working families and new families that are moving into our state, and they're not able to go from their apartment complex to buying a house or buying a condo with a very modest income, and that should not be the case. We want to retain our people here in the Commonwealth. We really don't want to see our talent leave here and go to other states. So.
If I can expand the conversation a little and just and empathize, I suppose. I have two college age right now that are in Massachusetts colleges that indeed would be contemplating perhaps going to a more affordable place because they're fully aware of the costs.
And I hear many of those stories, with our constituents in the district. Families with their children that are just graduating. They want to start a life of their own, and now they're having to, they don't exactly want to move back in with their parents. They want to, buy their first house, or they've been working for a couple years. They have, tech jobs. industry up 128, good paying jobs, and they're still not able to afford suitable housing in the Commonwealth. So yeah, it's we have to have some attention to it, and hopefully I know the building has started. I've had conversations with many local contractors. There is one thing I'd like to see as far as with building these new structures. There's their hands are tied with some of the codes, some of the new codes that are in place as far as green codes are concerned, which actually increase the cost for not only the builder but the person buying these buildings. So we definitely need to take a look at that. Obviously, green initiatives are good, but not at the peril of the people who are buying, these parcels of land or these buildings, and then the builders themselves, because it's not advantageous for all parties involved.
We have covered the section on resident-supplied questions. Thanks for addressing those. Now, in the second part of our program, let's turn the mic over to you, Marcus Vaughn, for a deep dive into what you're up to on Beacon Hill.
Yes, so I have a couple of pieces of legislation that I am putting forth. The first one is a wind farm study. So as many of you have seen in the news lately, it's Bill H 3233. I am requesting a deep dive into wind farms off the coast of Massachusetts and the East Coast in general. As we've seen of late, wind farms being installed off the coast of New Jersey, and some disturbance with our sea floors and mammals, most particularly our whales and endangered whales. I think there needs to be more effort to finding out what the potential harms of our marine life and our fishing industries could be. Obviously, Massachusetts is known for our fishermen and our seafood, and then obviously the marine life and our sea floors. So I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the future, and we don't get caught, having a larger issue, years down the road as we implement this new infrastructure for our grid. So that's one proposed bill that I've been working on. We're actually working on, with the increase in mental health occurrences, especially with our youth coming out of COVID. I have a bill H. 3573 establishing a grant program for additional resources as far as mental health counselors in our school systems. We're very limited right now as far as mental health counselors within our education system. So this bill would propose a grant program, a funding mechanism to allow for outside third-party mental health counselors to come into our schools, provide those services, whether it's in school during the day or after services. I'm sure a lot of Millis constituents have heard about Safe Coalition out of Franklin. They are a regionalized third-party mental health support system that provides support to our youth. They do great work here. More organizations like that being able to provide to them and make sure they have the resources available to care for our youth. So those are just some of the bills that I'm working on. Just some fun ones. I have a fun one with as a small business owner, often talking to other small business owners in the area. Some of our restaurateurs have their own food trucks. It is an absolute pain for a restaurant owner with a food truck to be able to be certified in the town that they are operating. So if we have a food truck here in Millis that maybe wants to go to Cape Cod for an event, they have to schedule certification with the health department in the town in Cape Cod, and then with the fire marshal. Hopefully the fire marshal and the health inspector are going to do their certification on the same day. If not, that food truck has to then travel to the Cape again to get their approval. There's different costs associated with pulling permits. I would like to see the process be rolled into one portal same paperwork across the Commonwealth, across different counties. We see this in Rhode Island, where it's one-stop shop for the food trucks, and they're able to go throughout the state. So just common sense legislation that will help our small business owners, and it would add an increase in the productivity in the economy. So.
Well, thank you, Marcus Vaughn, for, for updating with us.
Yes, no, thank
And chatting with us about your latest efforts over at the State House. If our viewers wish to contact you regarding anything you're working on over there, or any of the questions, the answers to our questions today, how can they reach you?
Yes, so you can reach me. My email is just marcus.vaughn@masshouse.gov, and my phone number is 774-307-9422. You can also reach us by direct message on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, State Representative Marcus Vaughn. State Representative Marcus Vaughn. We are on Instagram, and we are also on Twitter. We have a newsletter, so you can sign up for our newsletter. Just drop us an email or a message on one of our social media channels, and we'll add you to the newsletter, our monthly and quarterly newsletter, and give you updates on what's happening in the district, what's happening here in Millis and across the Commonwealth. So just a couple ways for you to contact me. We're always doing monthly coffee meet and greets, but very willing to meet with anyone in person on a one-on-one. I usually go to Twist to meet constituents here in Millis, but happy to meet any of the constituents wherever they see fit.
And that wraps up our conversation with Marcus Vaughn, our elected state representative from the 9th Norfolk District. I'm Peter Themistocles. Thanks for watching.